The third encounter of Vow, Exhibition, has to be one of the best speedrunning encounters in all of Destiny history. Combining diverse movement through varied room structures, conditional vision environments, extremely time-sensitive ad clear, a double out of bounds skip, and reduced player capability into one encounter where not a single section is time-gated, it's a speedrunner's dream come true. The first objective in Exhibition is spawning Glyph Keepers, which drop symbol sets essential to encounter progression once killed. 4 important observations form the basis of the strategy used in the current Vow record. First, Glyphs spawn on a side independent interval that checks for a specific total amount of rapid Scorn deaths on that side. This means that certain Scorn enemies are tied to specific Glyphs, and that when enough are killed to meet a certain counter requirement, the associated Glyph will spawn at the next interval check. Second, almost every Scorn enemy matters when it comes to Glyph spawn checks. This means even one Wraith or Stalker left alive can stop a Glyph from spawning, so it is essential to kill everything with prejudice. Third, Scorn begin to spawn in the next room the second the current room symbols are correctly input. In certain rooms, this means that they can wander from spawn doors or clouds into areas where they are spread out or immune thanks to taken strengths. Finally, seeing Glyph Keepers approach in chat does not mean you can stop clearing ads. You should keep killing ads until a Glyph physically spawns in front of you. Depending on how many ads are killed, sometimes Glyphs can spawn instantly or take upwards of a few seconds to spawn in post-animation. As a result of this information, loadout-wise, most players opt for weapons like Witherhoard and Forbearance with an Eager Edge Sword for mobility. Some roles are mostly on relics or do not require rapid movement to a new ad spawn in rooms where they are not carrying a relic. In this case, a rocket can be great for instantly killing a Glyph, as some players in our team opted for that instead. For ad coverage, we distributed everyone equally, with non-relic players being given more challenging ad spawns, as well as Glyphs, since the relics had reduced combat capability. Something important to note, new enemies will continue to spawn next to doors by recently killed Glyphs, and these enemies will attempt to make their way to the second Glyph region on the same side as the killed Glyph. As a result, the doors by a dead Glyph Keeper must remain trapped until they stop leaking ads. This is especially important in Third Room, where abandoning a door early can lead to disastrous consequences if enemies are allowed to leak. On top of the weapons previously mentioned, depending on the class composition of the team, any grenade that is good for ad clear is generally good in this encounter, like Storm, Vortex, or Solar grenades. Glyph Keepers need to be killed instantly in order to do one of two things as fast as possible. The first Glyph Keeper in a pair gates the spawn of additional Scorn, which themselves gate the spawn of the second Glyph. The second Glyph, of course, drops the symbol information required to solve the Ingress, and reveals the Ingress symbols as well. As mentioned before, weapons like rockets and swords are highly effective at killing Glyphs quickly. After killing sets of Glyphs, symbol information must be read and communicated in order to complete the Ingress present at the end of every room. In Vow speedruns, the first set is done normally, with our team reading non-relic or Scorn first, then relic or taken second, with the relic player calling the correct common symbol.
Which queen stop AP?
Good Glyphs, good Glyphs. Stop. However, for the second set of symbols, we take advantage of a unique property of Glyph Keepers in order to reduce the amount of communication and confirmation between players required. The second Scorn Glyph Keeper in any room will always have only one of its 3 symbols on the Ingress, meaning that for the second set in any room, only the Scorn or non-relic callouts are needed, and the player inputting symbols can simply check the wall to see which of the 5 remaining symbols on the wall match up with one of the 3 listed by the Scorn reader.
Prehistoric BH.
In terms of shooting the wall, typically the laser relic is responsible, since most other players are purely using projectile weapons like grenade launchers. Players shooting the wall can repeatedly shoot a single symbol without fear of a reject in this encounter. So if the first symbol is known, the laser can repeatedly shoot it until they learn what the second symbol is to speed things up. Finally, the shield relic should only cleanse at the beginning and very end of rooms, since the shield aura can block the Ingress' symbols from being shot. As mentioned earlier, in every room, inputting the correct symbols into the Ingress immediately starts the spawn of Scorn in the next room. Teams can exploit this fact by having skippers arrive at a room early, killing all the Scorn and spawning in Glyphs before the rest of the team is anywhere near them. In the current Vow record, only Third Room has early ad skippers. We considered having early second and early fourth skippers, but decided against it for a number of reasons. Early second is impossible to reach from first room starting inbounds, and having the 1-3 skipper begin the encounter out of bounds only to arrive at second room as the rest of the team is getting there is not worth it. Early fourth is not very helpful either. Half the scorn instantly become immune even if a projectile weapon is pre-fired at where the enemies will be as they spawn in, meaning one side of the room will be slower than the other, reducing the usefulness of the skip. Only in the third room do scorn spawn far enough away from taken strengths with reasonable out-of-bounds routes for skips to be worth doing, especially because they allow players to skip the first set of strengths entirely since the adds never make it there. This goes without saying, but it is absolutely essential that skippers arrive before the adds start spawning, because any add leakage on either side can and will result in late glyph spawns. Role-wise, players should organize such that skippers deposit relics in the room before they skip as much as possible, so there is no need to deal with the curbed resonance debuff. We had to circumvent this problem twice for two separate reasons. First, we determined that 2 skippers were the best option to kill all the early adds in third room effectively without leaks, but only 1 relic was available for pickup in first room, the room prior to the room where players leave on skip. As a result, one of our relic players had to die after depositing their relic and immediately get revived so they could pick it up again, successfully circumventing their debuff with minimal time loss, while still allowing for 2 early third room skippers. Finally, you also need someone to skip to fourth encounter. The 3-4 skip in Vow is a little unique since Rolk's Cocoon is already present during Exhibition, so the skipper can spawn in Rolk and prep the encounter to start if they are early enough. Unfortunately, no Death Warp exists for 3-4 as of now, so it has to be a wipe pool, but the skipper can start the encounter and wipe as soon as third encounter ends. Since our 3-4 skipper needed to leave in fourth room, but was also an early third skipper, they needed to somehow deposit a relic before fourth room in order to avoid someone having the curbed resonance lockout. Consequently, we decided to have the third room shield relic drop their relic after being hit towards the middle of third room, which allowed them to transfer their relic mid-room to the skipper, who would deposit it, allowing them to leave on skip without consequences. Exhibition is a great example of an encounter that takes the core aspects of speedrunning, movement, ad clear, and communication, and enhances them with unique terrain, limiting player capability, and the potential for skips and player-gated objectives like the Ingress. Next video, we'll be discussing Rolk, the final encounter of the raid, and then this chapter of Speedrunning Insights will be concluded. Excited to see what happens next.